Welcome back to Creating a Universe, where we're discussing the various elements that go into creating a believable and immersive world for your story. Today, we're going to be talking about making a history that ties in with all of the characters, locations, races, and cultures of your world. World history and location history come from the accumulation of several of the previous topics. From creating your world's setting and laws to finding out where certain locations are and describing them, your history will begin to slowly unravel. When your characters come to a location, they might make reference to something that happened there long ago. If it's relevant to the rest of the story, you could flesh out the referenced event and start drawing connections to certain people, bloodlines, and other locations. For example, maybe your characters go to an old abandoned castle where the tyrant king of ancient times used to rule. They talk about the champion who went there long ago to challenge him. Maybe he won, maybe he didn't. Maybe the tyrant king trapped him in another dimension and now your heroes are here to free him. You would then be free to delve into those details. Maybe the main character is born of the same bloodline of that character, and that's why they have to be there to free him. The references that you place through descriptions and character dialogue will start to lay the foundation of the past and the heroes and villains that ruled it. It should shape the way that your characters, locations, and other races interact with one another. One of the most important things to keep in mind when creating history for your world is to keep it consistent. That means making sure your historical events and cultures all make sense within the context of your world. If it's a fantasy setting, but you casually mention that long ago one of the gods came down in a massive spaceship and taught people how to fight with laser guns, that's going to be rather jarring for your audience. Not to say that you can't mix genres, because you absolutely can, but this all depends on your ability to translate what's in your head to a piece of paper to a reader's hands. Using the same example, you have to use language that would make sense to the people that populate your world. Casually mentioning a spaceship out of the blue is a great way to rip someone out of the immersion that you've spent so much time building for them. Instead, you would have to describe it as something otherworldly, something that the characters don't understand. Instead of, the god came down from space in a spaceship, he came down from the heavens, sailing the wind in a hulking metal ship as only a god could. From there, you would have the liberty to make that story about a literal god, or maybe something as simple as an alien race that the early people of your world mistook for a god. Though the characters of your world wouldn't know the answer, you would, and you can start hinting at the truth throughout every mention of that story. Forming a good, in-depth past for your characters and locations makes the world feel lived in, and makes it feel like it has already stood the test of time and is still chugging along. Rather than have your reader think, this is a new book that I haven't read yet, they'll get the sense that it's been around much longer than they have and that it has so much to offer them. It will make the reader feel as though there's so much for them to learn and so much for them to take away from this story. Another key aspect of creating a believable history is to consider how it affects the different races and locations of your world. Think about the way different historical events and cultures would shape the way that different locations and races look, feel, and act towards each other. Maybe many years ago there was a great war between two nations, and now the rest of the world has moved on, but these two have yet to forgive each other. That would spawn certain prejudices between the two groups and would reflect when different characters from those groups interacted with one another. Continuing with that example, a great war between two powerful empires could have left one region in ruins while the other one prospers. Or a powerful religious movement might have spread across the world, shaping the different beliefs and cultures of different races. Finally, it's important to remember that history is not just information about the past, but that the present dictates the history of the future. Think about historical events and cultures that would affect a character's personal history and shape the decisions that they would make in the future, thus possibly even changing the direction of the story. For example, in my own novel, there's a character who is only ever meant to be a support to the main character and follow him along his journey. But through a certain prejudice that he naturally developed in the writing process, he garnered such a strong personality that any scene he was in, he absolutely stood out in. And in so, the plot of the entire story naturally evolved with him. So much so that many people who have read the story think that he is the main character, and that is very nearly true at this point. With this, I would like to briefly go back and reinforce a point that I made on the topic of characters. A good character will not only write themselves, but they may even write the story for you. And that's going to be it for this episode of Creating a Universe. Remember, when you're able to create a deep, detailed history for your world, you'll in turn make your story dense, lived in, and something that has already stood the test of time. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'm going to be collecting comments throughout the series and answering as many as I can at the end. And remember that there are such things as stupid questions, but that does not mean that they should not be answered. If you found this helpful, give the video a like and consider subscribing. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.